The fallout over a brutal North Carolina murder continues as President Trump weighs in.
Just viciously stabbed. She's just sitting there. We have to be able to handle that. If we don't handle that, we don't have a country.
Is this yet another consequence of soft on crime policies?
I'm Georgia Howe with Daily Wire Executive Editor John Bickley. It's Tuesday, September 9th, and this is Morning Wire.
As the Five Eyes allies look to crack down on illegal immigration, the Supreme Court allows for Trump's big city ICE raids to continue.
It's going to be good for us to be able to go out there and use this ruling to apprehend more people that should not be in the country.
And RFK Jr. is firing back at Democrats, demanding he step down, vowing to deliver new blood and integrity to public health.
What the Trump administration is going to do is return gold standard science and make this agency a lead agency for public health in the world once again.
Thanks for waking up with Morning Wire. Stay tuned. We have the news you need to know.
If you run a small business, you know there's nothing small about it. Even the smallest decisions can feel massive. That's where Shopify comes in. Shopify is the e-commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world, from household names to brands that are just getting started. You can tackle all the important tasks all in one place, from inventory to payments to analytics and more. Even marketing becomes a breeze thanks to their built-in tools for running social media and email campaigns, helping you find new customers and keep them coming back. Plus, Shopify's global selling tools have you covered internationally in over 150 countries, and their award-winning point of sale connects your online and offline sales all in the same place. With an impressive 99.99 uptime and the highest converting checkout experience on the planet, you'll never miss another sale. That's the Shopify advantage. Get all the big stuff for your small business right with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period and start selling today at shopify.com/morningwire. Head over to shopify.com/morningwire. Again, that's shopify.com/morningwire.
I just give my love and hope to the family of the young woman who was stabbed this morning or last night in Charlotte by a madman, a lunatic.
That was President Trump addressing the shocking video of the deadly stabbing on Charlotte's light rail. The attacks raising questions about crime prevention failures in America's inner cities.
Here with the details is Daily Wire culture reporter Megan Basham. So Megan, first off, as a Charlotte resident, I just want to ask, how's the community doing?
Well, you know, what you're seeing is a lot of shock and anger from people. They're starting to question the policies that helped contribute to this crime that really has appalled the entire community. I really want to set the scene for you here, Georgia, and say that this is not a dangerous area where this crime took place. It's in South End. It's an area of bustling boutiques and shops, very trendy restaurants. My family and I go there frequently, but really the character of the area has started to change in the last couple of years. You're starting to see more homeless people on the streets. You're seeing them camped out, congregating. And so a lot of people have talked about how they no longer feel safe riding on that train where Irina Zocdoc was killed. And I'm going to show you a little bit of that video. For those who are watching, this is disturbing, so I want to give you that warning. And if you're just listening, what we're seeing is an image of the alleged killer, DeCarlos Brown, rising with the knife in his hand, getting ready to attack Zocdoc. And then to give you some hard numbers here, Georgia, Charlotte saw a 25% increase in the homicide rate last year. It was the second highest year on record. The previous high was in 2020, same year that saw those Black Lives Matter riots. Robberies in our inner city are up 54%, and general violent offenses are up nearly 10%. And then, most shocking perhaps, shootings into occupied property is up 42%.
So it appears to fit into a troubling pattern that's been going on for a few years now. What policies do people feel are playing a role in these crimes?
Well, I actually want to start by highlighting the response of Charlotte's mayor, Democrat Live Viles, because a lot of this was really surprising to people. Her initial statement did not mention the victim at all. Instead, she spoke about the perpetrator, and she said this: "We will never arrest our way out of issues such as homelessness and mental health. I want to be clear that I'm not villainizing those who struggle with their mental health or who are unhoused. Mental health disease is just that, a disease like any other that needs to be treated with the same compassion, diligence, and commitment as cancer or heart disease. So portraying this man as a real victim here. North Carolina Congressman Mark Harris was fairly astonished at Lyle's comments, and this is what he told us.
I'm not even sure that she understands what she means by that. I'm not sure anybody does. The bottom line is that this is a criminal that had an incredible rap sheet. 14 arrests. I understand that there was a mental health issue here, and I think that doesn't excuse the crime.
But Lyle's sentiment has been reflected in North Carolina policies that were implemented starting back in 2020. So 2 weeks after George Floyd was killed, North Carolina's governor, then AG Josh Stein, announced a task force for racial equity in criminal justice.
We will review law enforcement recruitment, training, and accountability, as well as court issues, including pretrial release and the use of fines and fees.
So after that announcement, the Racial Equity Task Force did indeed recommend increasing pretrial release and decriminalizing homelessness and quote unquote public behavior. So basically being a menace on public streets. It also implemented implicit bias training for judges and prosecutors. So these are the very factors that played into the alleged killer, DeCarlos Brown, being on the streets. He had at least 14 previous arrests, including armed robbery, felony breaking and entering, and assault with a deadly weapon. Though he did serve 5 years for that robbery, on most of these arrests, he was credited with time served and received probation and community service. His most recent arrest was in January for misusing 911. And in that case, a judge, despite his long record, did once again give him pretrial release. So that really goes to decriminalizing homelessness and public behavior and how these policies left him on the streets, though he was known as a violent threat.
Well, just a reminder, Zarutska escaped from Ukraine totally intact, and this happened to her on American soil. So shameful. Megan, thanks for reporting.
Yep, anytime.
You know that nagging feeling about the doctor's appointment you've been putting off forever? Maybe it's a dentist cleaning that you're now 6 months overdue for, or the annual checkup that somehow turned into a 3-year gap. With Zocdoc, you can find and book the right doctor entirely online, and honestly, you'll probably have an appointment scheduled before the end of this ad. Finding the right doctor used to be such a hassle, but Zocdoc has really changed the game. Zocdoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality in-network doctors and click to instantly book an appointment. They've got over 100,000 doctors across every specialty you can think of: mental health, dental, primary care, urgent care, you name it. The best part is you can filter for exactly what matters. Doctors who take your insurance are nearby and have great ratings from real patients. Once you find someone who looks like a good fit, you can see their actual available slots and book instantly, no more phone tag. Stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to Zocdoc.com/wire to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/wire. Again, that's Zocdoc.com/wire today.
The Trump administration's border policies are back in the news this week, thanks to a major Supreme Court decision and a high-profile international trip.
Here to break it all down for us is Daily Wire Washington editor Tim Rice. Hey, Tim, it's been a minute. We haven't seen you in a bit. So lots of border news already this week. Where should we start?
Well, John, how about we start overseas? Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem is in London for a meeting of the Five Eyes. That's the intelligence sharing alliance that includes the US, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. This week's meeting is all about border security, specifically efforts to crack down on international human smuggling. Britain's Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood is leading the talks, despite only joining Prime Minister Keir Starmer's cabinet on Friday. Her office said that the Five Eyes will devise policies to, quote, smash criminal smuggling gangs, as well as stop the opioid trade. Days before the summit, Mahmood pledged to crack down on illegal immigration in the UK, and on Monday she said that the British government could soon suspend visas to countries that refuse to accept citizens turned away by British authorities.
That seems like a pretty major shift for the UK, at least in tone, correct?
Yeah, that's right. Mahmood's only been on the job for a few days, but she already seems to be positioning herself closer to the Trump administration on this immigration question. Like most of Western Europe, the UK has seen record numbers of immigration. In fact, Mahmood's first day on the job actually saw the highest number of people crossing the English Channel ever. Britain has also been grappling with the revelation that thousands of young girls were systematically groomed and raped by groups of predominantly Pakistani immigrants, and that officials not only failed to stop this abuse, but in many cases punished the victims instead of the abusers. So we'll have to see exactly what comes out of this Five Eyes summit, but so far it seems like good news for the White House.
It does. Now back here domestically, we have a significant win for the Trump administration related to its immigration agenda. Tell us about this SCOTUS ruling.
Yeah, that's right. The Supreme Court ruled yesterday that federal immigration officials can continue their sweeping raids in the Los Angeles area, raids that a judge had blocked, calling them indiscriminate. The court's ruling means that federal officials like ICE will be able to detain people on the suspicion that they are in the country illegally, and they'll be able to weigh things like accents and ethnicity in their decisions. Writing for the liberal trio, Justice Sonia Sotomayor issued a characteristically, let's say, dramatic dissent, writing that the court was, quote, needlessly subjecting people to the indignities of being grabbed, thrown to the ground, and handcuffed simply because of their looks, their accents, and the fact that they make a living doing manual labor. As if anticipating Sotomayor's rebuke, border czar Tom Homan made it clear over the weekend that he had no sympathy for those here in the country illegally.
ICE is sending a message to the whole world that there are consequences for entering the country illegally. There are consequences for being here illegally. And there are consequences, especially for being here illegally and committing crimes. So ICE is focusing on public safety threats. And I looked at the numbers this morning. 70% of everybody ICE arresting is a criminal. The other 30% are gang members who don't have criminal histories, national security threats.
As we've reported on this show, Trump's immigration crackdowns in blue cities are definitely yielding results, not only in places like LA, but also now here in DC. His takeover has yielded over 1,600 arrests, with many of those being illegal immigrants, including suspected gang members and other violent offenders.
And numbers the administration has been touting in its bid to send more troops to more cities.
That's right.
Tim, thanks for reporting.
You bet.
HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is standing up for the MAHA agenda as Democrats amp up calls for the secretary to resign.
Here to discuss is Daily Wire reporter Amanda Prestigiacomo. So, Amanda, a bit ironic that Democrats have really zeroed in on Kennedy as their most hated cabinet member. What are they asking for?
Well, at least a dozen Democrat senators have called on Kennedy to resign. And if you caught any legacy media shows this past weekend, you might have noticed that it's pretty much all the same message. The knives are out for Kennedy. The focus from Democrats is largely on the CDC and vaccines. There have been some shakeups at the CDC and resignations. We've covered those here. And Kennedy has routinely said that trust in the CDC in particular is broken. That's something he's trying to fix. Kennedy said during last week's Senate hearing that he had to fire people at the agency because they simply weren't doing their jobs. At least 11 Democrat senators on the Finance Committee signed onto a letter demanding Kennedy resign. They argued that he has a dangerous anti-health and anti-science agenda. Senators Ron Wyden, Bernie Sanders, though technically an independent, Elizabeth Warren, and Raphael Warnock all signed onto that letter. On one of those weekend shows, Chris Christie attacked Kennedy too. He called him a joke. Now, Christie was a Republican governor and presidential hopeful, but he's become a very fierce Trump critic, and this attack on RFK, unsurprisingly, is centered around Trump.
The president's smart enough to know RFK Jr. doesn't belong in that job. But after he won, he wanted to show everybody, I can do whatever I want to do because this Senate will be compliant no matter what I do. And I'll put the greatest vaccine and public health denier of the last 20 years in charge of public health in America.
We're also seeing a lot of opposition to Kennedy on the state level. New York Governor Kathy Hochul, she signed an executive order on Friday, and this is going to allow all New Yorkers, including very healthy young children, to access prescription-free COVID shots. Now, under new FDA guidance, healthy people under 65, they'll have to talk to their doctor first before getting that shot. This order overrides that. Democrat Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, he recently signed legislation that allows full access to the highly controversial chemical abortion pill called mifepristone. The idea here is to override the FDA if they were to assess that that pill is not safe for young women or not safe without certain regulations.
Wow. So let's talk about RFK's response to all of this. Has he addressed any of these things directly?
Yeah, well, we know that Kennedy is no shrinking violet. We've seen him in hearings fiercely defend himself and the MAHA agenda, which, by the way, has wide support among the American people if you look at polling. Kennedy has recently called out major medical organizations like the American Academy of Pediatrics. He says they have too much influence from big pharma corporate sponsors. These groups routinely oppose Kennedy and the MAHA agenda. Here's a bit of Kennedy defending recent changes at the CDC. He's going after the medical establishment here.
These people are the people who ordered our children to walk around in masks. They're the people who closed our schools. They're the people who imposed social distancing with no science, shut down our businesses, and they need to go. We need new blood in. We need new people who are committed to public health and integrity and gold standard science. And the Trump administration is going to make sure that happens.
In addition to fiercely fighting back, Kennedy is moving at an unprecedented pace at HHS. So far, the department has reformed baby formula standards. They've worked with major companies to phase out artificial food dyes. HHS is now requiring transparency so Americans can compare drug prices and out-of-pocket costs. They've stopped funding for gender surgeries and treatments for minors. They're working right now to reform nutrition guidelines. They've most recently cracked down on medical information blocking, and, the list just goes on. And next on the horizon for HHS is an upcoming vaccine panel meeting. That's ACIP. They're going to look at the childhood vaccination schedule. Democrats are already furious over that meeting, which, has yet to happen. And we'll also have an update this month on research related to the potential causes of the massive spike in autism. We'll be keeping tabs on all of those forthcoming updates.
Certainly a lot to keep your eye on. Amanda, thanks for reporting.
You're welcome.
Thanks for waking up with us. And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll be back this evening with more news you need to know.